Yeah. Look, you know how to play against.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Hit Me Again. Seth Topa and Colton Molesky. Early Sunday morning edition of the show. We've got a lot to discuss today. Colton's got his morning coffee, which looks delightful.
A little espresso roast from a local place with just a touch of cream and a chocolate chip muffin. Great way to start out a Sunday morning. Coming to you this morning because guess what? We both work in news. And so with everything that's happened this last week, little busy this week. So we're trying to squeak this in, but we have also worked some insane hours. So we apologize for the delay. But you know what? Sometimes that's life.
Yeah. It was a crazy enough week that I got crazy enough yesterday to go back to a beverage that I don't think anybody above the age of 21 should ever consume, the Four Locos. And I'm alive, so here we go.
You battled with the dragon, you came out on the other side. So the way we're going to break this down is we're going to tackle each of the AFC and NFC Championship games, the two NFL games, and then we are going to dive into a little basketball. We're going to do these in order. So looks like we are going to tackle the AFC, Championship game first today.
Let's do it.
All right. So I have some fun prop bets for each one of these games. Let's get to that in a second. First of all, let's go to the line. We have the Kansas City Chiefs favored by 3. The money line is minus 170. The over is 54.5. Seth, I got cleaned out last week for most of the weekend until the Buccaneers won and paid out. So that I have for my it's not even a traditional roller bet because I'm not going with the same team. It's just a weekly return bet that I just keep lumping together and moving to the next week. So I have just over 10 units for this week's rollover bet.
Yikes.
I've only got to put it on one place. That's the way we've been doing it. So we'll figure that out as we go along. First of all, do you like the Chiefs? Are you worried about Patrick Mahomes coming back from a really bad concussion? Also, the toe gave him trouble throwing all day long. What do you think?
You know, I look at it this way is that both teams don't have what we would call really good defenses. And so it's going to be a higher scoring game, but I think that means that both teams are going to be in the game provided Mahomes looks like himself. I think both teams are going to be in the game until late in the fourth quarter. Mahomes, that toe thing is a little concerning because he started to look, mortal before he absolutely got his bell.
He really had trouble planting that foot to get his pass off, which is a big deal, even for somebody like Mahomes who doesn't throw off a stationary platform all the time. And this game is going to be weird because I really don't trust the running game of either team. Feels like mostly they're going to spread out and toss it around. There are ways to beat this team, beat the defenses on both sides. Although Buffalo's defense has looked pretty good.
Yeah.
If I had to go somewhere, I would probably just go to the Chiefs money line just because it feels like the safest route. I do like a couple prop bets. I like the over for Josh Allen's rushing yards at 34.5. Because I think they do a lot of the spread out receivers with him alone in the backfield, and he kind of supplements their running game most of the time. I also really like, do you remember the game they played, what was that, October, Bills-Chiefs? It was a weird game. It was one of the better Clyde Edwards-Helaire games where he had, I think it was over 150 yards and a score or two. Demarcus Robinson led their team in receptions. The Bills defense did a pretty good job of funneling the passing away from Travis Kelce. So anytime score plus 350, Demarcus Robinson. I like that too. I feel like if the Bills defense is going to come out and play pretty well, maybe that gives Robinson a chance to find the end zone here. So those are the two prop bets I like. It really, and I whiffed on this last week because I thought that the Rams-Packers game was going to be a lot closer. Jared Goff actually looked really good despite the thumb surgery that he had, what was that, 3 weeks ago at the time of the game, 4 weeks ago? But Aaron Donald came out and just was hurt, just badly hurt. Clearly the ribs were a lot worse than they let on. And so I feel like it's a little bit of the same situation where this game, you could go away from it thinking, of course the Chiefs won. Why would I ever think anything else? But you could also go away thinking, wow, Mahomes is a lot more hurt than we thought.
Yep.
And I don't know, Tony Romo probably brought it up, 4 times before he got injured with the concussion and went out of the game, how much that toe was affecting him. It's going to be tough, especially when I don't think they can lead on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't think they can hand it off a bunch of times.
No, and the crazy thing is that like we may see a team in the Buffalo Bills completely abandon the run depending on how things play out. They've done it all season. And so if they get behind by a touchdown or 2 touchdowns, they may end up with like 10 total rushes as a team by the time the game is done. Yeah, I don't know. This game gives me similar vibes, strangely enough, to Alabama and Ohio State in the national title game, in that, it could go to where this is a very close game. We could see one team pull away, but much like Ohio State, Kansas City, as you said, they've got those injuries that they got to keep an eye on.
I also can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, we're just waiting on this Buffalo Bills team to break out like they did at the end of the season, how their offense looked just like a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's still a young quarterback. There is a chance that just never happens, that they just never pull out the 41-point game. He's a really young quarterback. We know that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs can. But
are you, if you're a Bills fan, are you worried about him having like an absolute like worst performance in a playoff game in team history type game?
I don't know. I do know that I really thought the Ravens defense was good, and they schemed up a lot of open balls last week, and he just missed them. You go back and watch that game, and there's a lot of plays that are there. They're there, and he missed them. And so maybe it gets fixed this week. The secondary for the Chiefs is not as good as the secondary for the Ravens, and I don't think they're going to be able to rush the passer as well, although they did have some moments last week against the Browns. But I don't know. It's so weird. You really could see some drastic swings either way for both of these teams. It's a hard one to guess. That's why I like sticking to the props this week. If you got to go somewhere, I would go with the Chiefs money line just because it feels a little safer. But I like the prop of the rushing yards for Josh Allen. That's minus 115 if you hit over, and plus 350 on Demarcus Robinson, who had a good game last time they played against the Chiefs. And they're going to be looking out for Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. He might be able to sneak out a touchdown. That's plus 350.
Yeah. I think those are a couple of good spots to go. Honestly, how many times do we see playoff games come down to a field goal? It seems like it happens quite a bit. So I would say the -3 is fine. I'm interested to see, sometimes we do see teams with high scoring offenses that run into each other and the defenses kind of went out. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that over under. I would love for this to be a more high scoring game, but would it shock me if we get like a 27-24? No.
Both of those are very on the table. That's why I stayed away from it. All right, that's the AFC Championship game. Let's take a look at the NFC Championship game. We've got Packers-Bucks. We've got the 2 sage quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, going head-to-head. They're in Lambeau. As someone who lives in Madison, just a couple hours south of Green Bay, I can tell you it has been brutally cold here in Wisconsin, and we just got an inch of snow dumped on us in the general area. It's going to be conditions in Green Bay. It's going to be unforgiving, and guess what? That Packer team looking like they've kind of fixed all of the problems that we were worried about earlier in the season. They look pretty perfect.
Yeah, I mean, of any of the teams playing in the playoffs right now, they're certainly playing the best out of any of them. And it comes down to, again, just how amazing Aaron Rodgers has been this year. And like, you're talking about a guy that is late into his career, and he's playing arguably the best football he ever has. That offense is just so fine-tuned. They have a receiver that is just an impossible matchup unless you commit multiple defensive backs to try to stop him in Davante Adams. Oh, and they have a running game too. Now, one of the big questions going into the Rams game was how they were going to look without David Bakhtiari, and they looked fine. Rodgers was barely touched throughout the entirety of the game.
Incredibly impressed with the backup performance.
Yeah, and so you look at like a team that just does not have really a lot of weaknesses at all, but here comes Tom Brady, playoff tested as ever, and they went into the game against the Saints as underdogs, and for a while it looked like they weren't going to be able to keep up, and all of a sudden the script flipped, and they end up winning because they've got a legit defense, and Vita Vea is going to be back for this game. That's a huge factor. So I don't know. My head says go with Green Bay, but honestly, I think the Buccaneers have a legitimate chance in this game.
So the Green Bay Packers are minus 3.5 point favorites. They're minus 200 on the money line. The over-under is 52. The problem here is that you just don't know how the Bucs are going to look. They've had some really weird games. Even in the playoffs, everybody was saying what a great game that was against the Saints. And you know what? They did play pretty well against the Saints, but they also scored, 4 times off of turnovers? I think they scored off of every one of the turnovers. But you're thinking their special teams look terrible, and they were giving up those long returns. Their defense early on was not holding up, mostly because the special teams was flipping the field, but they weren't able to stiffen at most points. And the offense was looking in a funk. They couldn't get anything deep going. They basically just had to rush for any kind of yardage. And they kind of it was almost just like waiting out Drew Brees and his wet noodle of an arm to give them that game. I don't know. I can tell you this. Aaron Rodgers is not going to give them this game. I promise you, Aaron Rodgers is not going to give them this game. So can you go and straight up win it? I don't know. As good as Tom Brady is in the postseason, as legendary as he is, and there is something to be said about, you know what, I'm just not going to turn over, and once they give me the opportunity, I'm going to step on their throat. There's something to be said about that and the patience in that, to play the long game throughout an entire playoff game and not panic. That said, if you're hoping that a turnover is what starts to break this game your way, I think you're going to find yourself down 21-0 in a hurry. And I don't know. The other thing is that we saw a team in the Rams who had the best shot of shutting down the number one option for the Packers, and we wanted to see what does it look like when they're depending on Valdez,
Scantling.
Scantling, and what does it look like for Alan Lazard, the Lizard? What does it look like for those two teams to try and carry the receiving options? And then Davante Adams went out and had 9 catches against arguably the best corner in the NFL. And you thought maybe it'll be a good game for the Rams because they're going to be able to pound the ball with this really good rookie, Cam Akers. And they never really let him dictate the game for the Rams offense. And even though Jared Goff had a good game, they never really let them run it down their throat. Let the Rams run it down their throat. And so I don't think that, like 2 months ago, we probably would have said, well, Leonard Fournette is going to be able to come out and pound this game. He's coming in fresh to the playoffs. He's going to be able to pound this defense through 4 quarters. I don't know if that's an option anymore. And guess what? One of the prop bets I love for this game, I'm going to give you guys a few prop bets. One of the prop bets I love, 7 receptions for the over-under is 7 receptions for Davante Adams, minus 130 for the over. I love that because they're going to figure out ways to get him the ball. You see like stuff in the red zone where it's just that arrow route, that direct from the line of scrimmage to the sideline route. He's going to catch one or two of those. He's so good off the line of scrimmage, getting out of his break and getting into a route, those double move routes. He loves them. He finds that cushion between the safety and the corner, and he's catching 3 of those. I mean, he is just money in so many different areas of the field. I can't help but think Packers here. And I don't know. I feel like this game is kind of back and forth. So I think that a late touchdown maybe breaks this one open for the Packers. I'm leaning towards the -3.5 here.
You remember what happened in the regular season when these two teams squared off, and it was just that uncharacteristically off performance for Aaron Rodgers because Ndamukong Suh had a couple plays where he got to Rodgers, and it seemed like it really got in his head, and it looked like Green Bay was going to run away in that game because I think through the first 3 possessions, they had like 99% of the possession time.
And they were up 10-0 in that
Yeah.
game. People forget that.
And then all of a sudden that pick 6 and things just completely flipped. And so, I wonder, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to let that happen a second time, but I remember looking back in that game and thinking, wow, he was just like, dare I say, like rattled for the first time in a long time. And so this Buccaneers defense, they can do that because they have some players that really like to try to get under your skin, but I don't see that being something that Aaron Rodgers is going to let happen a second time. I think this game comes down to both offenses, and we could see, 45-41 would be great. I want points.
The other thing is Tom Brady makes up for a lot of inexperience because he is so good in the postseason. He just won. He just started in his 43rd playoff game, which is more than the average career for a football player is like, what, 2 seasons? 2.5 seasons. It's incredibly short. And so, like, he's played in more playoff games than the average career length for a player. If you're going just across the entire league. That said, the playoff experience for almost his entire roster outside of coaching is last week.
Right.
Or the last 2 weeks, I should say. That's the entire playoff experience for most of his team is these last 2 weeks. And if they're on the road, it's really, really cold. And it's nasty. It stinks to play in. Every hit hurts a little more because it's freezing. And you're down 17-0. And the other team just isn't giving up the ball. And they're not letting off the pedal. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to pull them out of that. And now, granted, they could go shot for shot with them. And at the half, you're looking at like a 21-20 type game, 21-21 type game. That's totally plausible. But I'm just saying, in crisis, do you trust this team, even with Tom Brady on it, to find something to pull them out of this against Aaron Rodgers and this squad that looks like they have fixed their problems?
I'll put it to you in this way. All of the games today, I feel like Kansas City and Green Bay have the best chance to pull away. I feel like if Buffalo and Tampa Bay win, it's going to be in close fashion. But I think if things go bad for the Bills and for the Buccaneers, that I think we'll see those games be more lopsided in favor of the Chiefs and the Packers.
That's fair. All right, here are the bets. Just over 10 units. I'm buying some points, so I'm getting it down to just 3 points, -145. The rollover money is going on the Packers, -3, just over 10 units. Here's my prop bets. I love over 7 for receptions. That's Devontae Adams. Again, I think he's going to catch probably 9 to 10 balls again this week. I mean, just why not? Why not?
Yeah, go nuts.
The number's at 7.5, minus 30, 130 to go over. I'm taking that. The other one, and you're going to absolutely love this. You're going to love this one. The other one, oh, by the way, total receiving yards, 90.5 for Devontae Adams. Might want to look at that one as well. But I'm going with receptions. You're going to love this one. For plus 1,000, the order of first touchdowns. First touchdown goes to Robert Tanya. Second touchdown goes to Chris Godwin. Both have to happen to win the bet. But if the first touchdown is Robert Tanya and the second touchdown is Chris Godwin, it's plus 1,000.
Okay, yeah, that's my favorite bet of the weekend. Oh, that is so good. And like, there's a legitimately good chance that it happens that way.
Not terrible. It's not terrible. But it's a fun one.
God, that is a good bet. Oh my God.
All right. So that's what we've got. Those are the NFC Championship bets. Best of luck, everyone. All right. We're going to take a quick look to finish out our morning at the NBA. We've got a lot of things going on. The best team in the East looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sexland is strong in the force. We've got a lot of fun things happening in the Western Conference. I have spent most of this weekend catching up on my basketball watching. Seth, here's the way we're going to do this. Before we look at some bets, so far we're going to talk about our 3 favorite things to watch in the NBA, our 3 favorite things. And I will have you start us out. Do you want me to start us out or do you want to start out?
I think you can start.
All right. So obviously I'm going to start with the team that I noted early in the season, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got younger with the Harden trade. They just beat the Nets twice in a row.
Oh my God.
And Colin Sexton looks amazing. He looks like he took the step that everyone wanted De'Aaron Fox to take. He is just such a fast player, plays hard the entire game. His defense is really good. He's turned into a dynamic scorer. And Darius Garland has looked really good as well. This playing only a few games for the Darius Garland, the James Wisemans of the world. Only a couple college games to start to pan out for them. Maybe this is the new trend. This team looks phenomenal. I'm not saying they're going to win the title or anything like that, but they're a fun team to watch. And clearly they have the right pieces in place. They are one of my favorite teams to watch right now. How about you, Seth? What's your number 1 draft pick?
Well, honestly, for me, I'm going a little bit off the board here. I've had a lot of fun with the fact that Steph Curry is back.
Oh, yes. You took the words right out of my mouth.
And has been playing just at a very now Golden State. Here's the other thing. Golden State, considering no Klay Thompson, they are just out of the playoff picture in the Western Conference. James Wiseman is getting
he looks so good.
He does, and he's getting like the crazy thing is he's getting really, really good like on-court teaching from Draymond Green. So
he's pretty criminal though. Timberwolves didn't take him. Do we need to talk about that?
Oh no, we'll get to the Timberwolves in due time. And like Curry's just balling out. Wiggins is Wigginsing, but honestly, like one of my favorite players in the NBA, probably of all time, him being back and just hitting those crazy, like, well beyond the 3-point line threes that he always takes is breathing life back into the NBA.
All right, I had that one, but we're not going to double up. So I'll pivot to the Tom Thibodeau Knicks.
Oh my God!
Best defense in the NBA. Phenomenal. Actually, on a serious note, I have loved Randall since his days when they were the 8th-seeded Kentucky team that went all the way to the championship to play UConn and that Napier UConn team. I have loved Randall. Julius Randle was good. He's been good for a while, but he's always been I'm going to get my stats guy, and I'm just going to kind of be a black hole of usage rate. Now he actually fits inside that offense, and he's still a solid defensive piece. And so I have loved seeing my Julius Randle stock that I've had for just so long.
Finally pay off.
Start to gain some value. And so I have loved that team. Also, looking ahead to the bets, a solid team, if you're just looking at betting the under for whoever their opponent is, they make these games real rock fights and just slog them out. They beat the Celtics the other day by like 30, and the Celtics were held to under 80 points.
Good Lord.
I know. They just slog them. And they did the same thing against the Warriors the other night, too. They just slog out these games, and they make them low-scoring affairs. But I don't know. It's a bunch of guys that you haven't thought about in a little while that are fun to watch. All of a sudden, Julius Randle, Nerlens Noel, another big Kentucky name. These guys are nice to watch, and it's fun to see them win. And you know what? Good for Tibbs. Good for Tibbs.
Yeah,
figured out how to work with young guys.
Usage rate, minutes are up, but that's a Thibodeau thing. My second pick, my second favorite thing about the NBA is that I haven't watched a second of the Minnesota Timberwolves this year. We'll continue to not even a highlight of. And so here's the thing: you see on Twitter, like third quarter, you will see the Wolves up by like 8, and everybody knows what's going to happen. It gets to the end of the game, and it's like Timberwolves blow 15-point lead, lose by 20, or Timberwolves lose by 50, or D'Angelo Russell, after playing 21 minutes in a game, is going to rest the next night.
D'Angelo Russell being the best player on this team is tough.
This team is just a nightmare. And here's the thing. There's no sign that it's going to get any better. I don't know what you do with that franchise at this point.
It's a real tough look. Just for people who don't know, and this is really tough too, because for the last, 2 years, the thing with the Timberwolves is that they have swallowed the pill of bad defense, and they've always doubled down on really good offense. Well, their offensive net rating is the very last in the NBA. The very last. And their defensive rating is 26th in the NBA. So that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow. We can actually stay on the Timberwolves because they're my third thing that I've loved watching. Well, not necessarily the Timberwolves, but Anthony Edwards, AE. I tell you what, I don't know what he is for this team yet, but there is something fun to watch about him. He is a just pure athletic specimen. He has a ton of bounce. He's a solid scorer. Like, there will be games where he just has 23 points just burst out of nowhere. The problem is he doesn't fit into any sort of offense at all.
Shocker.
At all. I heard somebody say that he has the athletic potential to become the next Dwayne Wade. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that'll happen. He does strike me as way more athletic Deion Waiters, where he's just like has the confidence of when he's playing the Lakers. He's just like, who's this LeBron guy? I'm the best basketball player on the floor.
Look at me. I'm the
Anthony Davis. Get out the way. And he's going to get some buckets, but he's not going to fit into the prism of the offense. And I don't think he's going to do. He's averaging he's only putting up 12.1 points. So he's not like a scoring fiend or anything like that. But he is still a rookie, and he's getting some buckets. He'll have some high-scoring games, but he's only averaging 2.7 rebounds and 1.7 assists. I don't think he's going to do too much in an offense, at least not this year. And so I don't know how that helps the Timberwolves, but he is fun to watch. He is fun to watch. And as far as coming off the bench, he is a spark off the bench. And for a team that's the worst in offensive net rating, I guess you grab any points you can get.
So I really struggle with this. Like, you look at the other teams that we have in Minnesota. Like, the Vikings had, they were very much a 7-9 team. They missed a bunch of key pieces on defense that they will get back next year. So they will be right around that, hopefully better. The Twins are continuing to kind of rise into their window for a championship. The Wild have looked really good to start the season, and they continue to build off of a really, really good draft. I don't know what the Timberwolves are, like, other than just a bad franchise. And I don't think they know either, which is the unfortunate thing.
Yeah, and again, you wonder because that's like it's weird stuff like the lineup with the most minutes so far this season together is Davis, Russell, Beasley, Hernan Gomez, and Culver. And their offensive rating is 107.8 and their defensive rating is 115.4. And that's your like most used 5-man lineup. And it's just not good. It's just not good. And you have more success with lineups like Davis, McLaughlin, Culver, Edwards, McDaniels. I guess because they're playing the second or third string guys when they're on the floor. They've only played 16 points. But you're like, what I'm saying is if you just peel through some of these stats, this team doesn't really make much sense. And there are pieces that you like. I feel like Beasley is a solid piece if he's your like fourth or maybe even third guy, but at least your fourth, fifth guy, Beasley is a nice piece. Same with a bunch of Hernan Gomez you like as your like seventh guy. And Russell you like, but I think D'Angelo Russell you like if he is your third best player, not your best player. Edwards has some fun athleticism and seems to be at least a decent offensive piece when you're sending him out on his own and just like go get some points. Edwards, we don't expect you to really play within an offense. Karl Anthony Towns, I get he's on the COVID. He had COVID, and so he's on the COVID list. He's been out. Although after those first two games, it's not like they were burning down anybody's door with Towns out. You're right. I don't know where they go from here. And if you're looking at assets, I mean, the Warriors have their next pick, correct?
Yep.
And I don't know what you get for D'Angelo Russell at this point, because guess what? If you want a decent point guard who could average 23 points a night, that's out there. That's out there for anybody to get. That's out there in spades. And so I don't know what you get on return for him. I guess the movable piece right now is Towns. And so I don't know if you're starting to trade Towns and get this team off of different players for used parts, that gets to be pretty grim. And I don't know. I don't think there's a trade out there that gets them fringe playoffs in the next year.
No. It honestly feels to me like they thought that getting D'Angelo Russell and the number 1 overall pick would be enough to get them into the playoff picture. We're seeing that it clearly is not. But the other thing that is frustrating is so many people saying we need to give Ryan Saunders the whole season to see, and that's like just that tone. We have been doing that since Kevin Garnett left. The Timberwolves have been doing that since Kevin Garnett left. Is we need to be patient, and we're in the same spot, the exact same spot that we were when he was traded to whoever it was, Boston.
Yeah, and it's not like we're looking at a team that's middle of the road and you're looking for them to take that next step. Like if a switch flips, I don't know exactly what you're expecting this team to go from the worst in the league to middle of the road, because that's where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Getting better is not just absolutely floor on all of the advanced stats across the board pretty much. it doesn't get you to a fringe playoff team. I'm sorry, it just doesn't.
No. And like after a while, like you hear all the players after the game say, like, you know, we're continuing to develop, we're continuing to build the culture. We still haven't we're still getting accustomed to losing. That quote is just burned into my memory, which is disgusting. But
so let me throw it to you this way. If you're going by the records right now on the 24th of January, it goes the Detroit Pistons at 3-13, the Timberwolves at 4-11. The Wizards have missed a couple of games because of COVID, so they are at 3-8. They have not played as many games as the other two teams. And the Pelicans at 5-10. Which team would you want to be the general manager of? You have to pick one of those four.
Boy, I guess I think the correct pick would be probably the Pelicans.
It would either be the Pelicans or the Wizards, because you can get a substantial package for Beal still.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, the
Detroit is the only team that might be sadder than the Timberwolves because their Towns is Griffin, and he is older and has had an insane amount of injuries. So they're not going to get a ton for him. The Wolves
the crazy thing
for Towns, but it's not going to fix all their problems.
Here's the crazy thing. I would rather in terms of which team's going to get it figured out first, the Pistons or the Timberwolves, I would make the bet that it would be Detroit by a large margin.
I like their coach more, but they have been swimming in mediocrity for quite some time as well.
Almost as long as we have.
It's tough. Yeah, I would rather be the Wizards because they've got some pieces, and you will get a lot for Beal. If they move him this year, you will get a boatload for Beal. He is so good.
I wonder if, considering that Klay Thompson is coming back, I wonder if Golden State makes a play for Beal with the Timberwolves pick.
I don't know. I feel like Washington would want Wiseman too, and I think it feels like they genuinely like Wiseman a lot.
Yeah, if I have to part with Wiseman, if I'm Golden State, I don't make that deal.
Yeah, you know who would be perfect? I don't think they'd ever move him, but you know who would be perfect for Golden State right now if they want to make a push? Jaylen Brown. He's averaging his best points and three-point shooting of his career this year, and he's a great defender.
That'd be gross.
Defender. I would also, you would never be able to find me again. If Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum ever get traded off the Celtics, just continue on the podcast without me. You're not finding me.
Well, you don't have to worry about that because Boston is actually good.
They are good, but I'm just saying, like if they, like a couple of years ago, I know this sounds crazy, but a couple of years ago, if Anthony Davis had, or not, like a year and a half ago, if they had actually pulled off the Jason Tatum for Anthony Davis trade, you would never have found me again. You can't fix a broken heart, Seth.
Clearly not. I have one final NBA thing, because we kind of just went Timberwolves, my Timberwolves as 2, your Timberwolves as 3. Somebody's got to rescue Zach LaVine.
He's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun to watch.
I
bet things. Speaking of Zach LaVine, because they're playing pretty hot. I wanted to go over some teams that are hot right now. And so if you look at, like, Zach LaVine is one where if you go over points, depending on who they're playing, they're not playing today, so that I don't have any props, unfortunately, for the Chicago Bulls. But if you go over on Zach LaVine points, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young has been hot. Just dropped 43 on the Timberwolves. Go over on points for him. some hot teams, like I was saying, the Knicks. If you go under on Knicks points, I think that's a pretty solid bet. Cleveland Cavaliers, they're a hot team right now. They're playing the Boston Celtics plus 5.5. I'd take that. I'd take the Cavs. You look at Knicks playing Portland later today. You can bet against, although that's a tough one because CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard are averaging like over 50 points a game together. But those are just some things I'm noticing. If you're going night to night on the NBA, some trends that you can pick up on.
I will bet against the Timberwolves every game for the rest of the season.
You're not gonna make much money off of that because guess what? Vegas isn't betting on the Timberwolves.
Like,
just roll over, put like 2 units against them every single day.
Add a 0 to that, and you're more in my wheelhouse.
200 units. I love it. All right,
20,000 units. The Timberwolves played a lot of games.
Wow, I can't believe they won tonight. I will never financially recover from this.
Shout out Joe Exotic.
Couldn't get the pardon.
I know they had the limo and everything ready for him. Just
I love the idea of his lawyers just like sad George Michael music, like walking back into the limo and having it drive up.
That's all we got for today for Hit Me Again. You can look for the video breakdowns that we had for the AFC and NFC title game, as well as some of our NBA chatter as well. That'll drop with the podcast at miniice.com. We'll see you next week.
We won't be late again. There's no inauguration, so we won't be late again this week. We'll have a timely podcast this time around. Thanks for sticking with us, folks.